Hello, this is Dan Ferrisi, Editor-in-Chief with Commercial Integrator. So happy to be joined this morning by Jessica McDowell, who is Vice President of Business Development for Security and Networking with TD SYNNEX. Thank you so much, Jessica, for joining me today for what I'm sure will be a really interesting conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan.
So we're here to talk about the networking deep dive, AV over IP generally. I know TD SYNNEX is, and you are a thought leader in that area. So why don't we start with TD SYNNEX? Obviously, it's a leading distributor, a leading solutions aggregator. How is TD SYNNEX driving forward the trend of blurred lines between AV and IT these days?
Yeah, Dan, we are definitely seeing more of this trend. Pretty much all devices are on the network, right? And part of being an AV professional today is really also being savvy enough to navigate your own devices and then be able to communicate how your system's going to work. So if your system is going live on a network that's managed by somebody else, you have to not only be willing to play by their rules, but you also have to be able to effectively communicate what's needed for the system to work properly. And then TD SYNNEX, we're continuing to evolve with the market, right? Not only in the products that we sell, but also how we support our partners. You mentioned, how are we supporting the blurred lines? We offer a full bench of engineers with extensive experience in this space. We offer education courses to help partners get up to speed quickly on specific technology trends and segments and products. And then, of course, speaking of products, we offer many products that support these evolving environments, these blurred lines. For example, our portfolio of wireless connectivity vendors have made it very easy to separate your security critical devices like your laptops, your phones, your camera to more secured Wi-Fi networks while keeping IoT devices designed for more for the convenience aspect, keeping those separate.
So talking about that idea of separation, when we were writing our networking deep dive, the integrators I spoke to, the thought leaders I spoke to, wanted to talk quite a bit about the idea of integrators and clients may be merging or having unified technology networks or separate walled off AV networks. So I'm interested in your top line perspective as more and more applications begin utilizing these network-based solutions in AV over IP. If you're seeing a trend more toward one or more toward the other in applications like corporate, enterprise, higher education, et cetera.
Well, Dan, I would say the good old fashioned, it depends, right? And it really depends on the size and the complexity of the system. So as you can imagine, merging systems requires this close involvement with IT departments. And it makes sense when you have these larger, more complex systems or networks to have more of a merged system. The larger and more complex the system, the greater the need to maintain this secure infrastructure. It all goes hand in hand. So we see the adoption of merged networks really to narrow the scope of security tools that are needed to maintain the environment. Tool fatigue, as they call it, has become pretty common when you have applications that are being managed separately. On the flip side, it could be argued that with your smaller systems, it's usually best to reduce that heavy lift and work with a separate network when it comes to AV. But I will say in all of this, network security considerations are paramount, right? If the integrator can't clearly lay out how they're not going to create a network vulnerability, then they absolutely need to work with TD SYNNEX or with a knowledgeable IT professional to create a very clear plan in that regard.
Very, very well said. I couldn't agree more that network security absolutely is paramount to articulate it, but also obviously to be able to effectuate it, to be able to make it happen. What I'm seeing these days is a very wide variety of network-related standards and protocols. I'm thinking about, Dante AV, SDVoE, HDBaseT, IPMX. I could go on and on down the list. Do you think that wide variety of approaches either helps or hinders the proliferation of network-based systems? Do you think a solutions aggregator like TD SYNNEX can really help stakeholders meaningfully disentangle all the options that are at their disposal?
Yes and yes. So if you're not an expert, right, this wide variety that you mentioned, yeah, it can become a hindrance as you're trying to navigate, choose the right protocol, make sure you're checking all the protocol boxes. But I would say that's where TD SYNNEX comes in, right? We can absolutely help the stakeholders disentangle these options. We've got design teams that are happy to help guide partners through the best protocol for whatever application they're looking to deploy. And then we've got our dedicated sales engineers, that huge bench that I mentioned earlier, for all of our networking vendors that can help scope these correct configuration settings to maintain the standards with all of the compliancy laws that are out there.
Absolutely. That's exactly, I think, the kind of value proposition that an aggregator like TD SYNNEX brings, and it's so powerful for partners. Would you say that the blurring of lines between AV and IT has the potential to usher in a new era of service-based integration that can offer higher margins? That's something obviously Commercial Integrator spends a lot of time talking about, since our raison d'etre is to help integrators run their businesses better. Have you seen integrators capitalizing on that kind of service-based integration approach? And how is TD SYNNEX helping them to do that?
So there's absolutely potential on that front, Dan. But I would estimate, and what we're seeing is that not many, in fact, probably only a few integrators are truly capitalizing on this to the extent to which it can be capitalized on. You know, being able to go to market and package network connectivity, cybersecurity, physical security all together makes the integrators highly unique, highly specialized. And then here at TD SYNNEX, you know, we speak all of those languages that are needed to be successful: AV, networking, finance. We really have the ability to support those endeavors, provide the back-end support, help people scale. We also have the ability to build out custom enablement programs that are tailored to suit this specific needs. So no matter what it is that we feel our partners need to get up to speed on, or even if our partners come to us and say, hey, I really need more information on this, or I really need more support in being able to deploy a merged network or a hybrid environment, we're able to create custom programs that partners can dial into and then help track them through the process to get to that expert level.
Having those kind of resources at a partner's disposal, I would have to think, gives them kind of a glide path of sorts to be able to realize some of these opportunities that are there. And as you say, not everyone is taking advantage of them, but the opportunity is there. And hopefully TD SYNNEX can smooth the path to being able to realize those benefits. Do you have any closing thoughts, Jessica, as before we continue this conversation, or close this conversation rather, about AV over IP, about network-based systems, and about how TD SYNNEX can help?
I think the biggest key takeaway here, Dan, is if you're not taking advantage of all of our services and capabilities in our extended bench, you should be. And there's a ton of opportunity. As we mentioned, there's a lot of merging of networks. There's a lot of merging of environments. And I think where partners were previously an expert in one particular piece of a field, you know, we're seeing the trend that partners need to expand their toolkit, expand their portfolio, expand their go-to-market reach. And we're able to help with that every step of the way.
Expansion is the order of the day, and I think the message is these integrators don't have to do it alone. They have a resource that they can call upon. Well, thank you so much, Jessica McDowell, Vice President of Business Development for Security and Networking with TD SYNNEX, for joining me today. I really appreciate all of your insights and everything you've provided to Commercial Integrators audience to potentially leverage and benefit from.
Absolutely, Dan. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. My name is Dan Ferrisi, Editor-in-Chief with Commercial Integrator. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please check back on commercialintegrator.com regularly for more great, informative, and business-enhancing content just like this. Thank you.